Respect beyond words is not about the shallow compliments that can be thrown in a moment of convenience, nor is it about scripted praises that fade quickly once spoken. It is about the depth of how you see a man, how you acknowledge his efforts, and how you make him feel significant without turning it into a performance. Men are often taught that their worth is tied to what they provide, what they achieve, or the roles they fulfill. But underneath that conditioning lies a very human need to know that who they are, not just what they do, carries weight in the eyes of the person they love. Genuine respect becomes that bridge. It tells him, without noise or exaggeration, that his presence matters, that his struggles are seen, and that his effort has not gone unnoticed. For a man, respect operates almost like oxygen. He may not always talk about it, but he feels its absence deeply. When he is met with criticism that dismisses him, comparisons that belittle him, or silence that overlooks him, something within him begins to shrink. On the other hand, when he is met with recognition that is both honest and specific, when you notice the late-night grind, the thoughtful act, the small sacrifice, his spirit expands. Respect is not about saying, "I respect you," in passing. It's about showing it in the way you listen without interrupting, the way you acknowledge his decisions, and the way you trust his ability even when challenges arise. These are the moments that feed his sense of worth far beyond physical intimacy. Flattery may feel sweet in the moment, but it lacks the foundation that sustains connection. A man can sense when words are hollow, when they are offered without true observation, when they are used more as a tool of persuasion than a reflection of truth. Genuine respect, however, requires presence. It requires that you pay attention, that you notice the unseen details, and that you mirror back to him the qualities he may not even give himself credit for. When he feels this, it is not just his ego that is fed, it is his soul that feels understood. And once a man feels understood at that level, his loyalty and love deepen because respect becomes the soil in which his vulnerability can grow. Respect also extends to the way you carry yourself in his presence. A man who is loved but not respected feels half-valued, and over time that imbalance creates distance. But when you respect his thoughts, his choices, and even his silence, you communicate that you see him as capable, as strong, and as worthy of trust. This does not mean blind agreement or suppressing your own truth. In fact, men feel most respected when you can challenge them with honesty without dismissing their dignity. Disagreement with respect shows him that you are not only present, but invested enough to engage deeply while still honoring his place as a man. Another layer of respect lies in public versus private spaces. In private, words of recognition matter. In public, the way you speak about him, the way you stand by him, and the way you uphold his name when he is not around all carry more weight than you may realize. A man who knows his partner respects him when she speaks of him to others walks taller, works harder, and loves deeper because he feels safe in the knowledge that his worth is protected even in his absence. Respect is not only spoken to him, it is also spoken about him, and that indirect reflection often tells him more than direct praise ever could. Ultimately, respect beyond words becomes the language that assures a man of his value. It is woven into small gestures, everyday acknowledgments, and the trust you place in him. When you respect a man genuinely, he does not feel like he has to earn his worth every single day to remain enough. He feels that his essence, his being, his striving, his presence, is already enough, and that becomes the very foundation upon which love grows stronger than desire alone. Shared purpose creates bond because at the core of every man's heart lies the search for meaning. It is not enough for him to simply exist, to go through the motions of life without direction. Men are driven by the need to contribute, to build, to move towards something greater than themselves. This quest for purpose is not just about career or financial achievement, but about identity, impact, and legacy. When he finds a partner who not only understands this drive but supports and aligns with it, he feels a sense of anchoring in the relationship that no other element can provide. Love deepens when it becomes more than just affection. It becomes a shared journey, a united mission where both individuals see themselves as teammates working towards something bigger. Purpose gives men focus, but partnership gives them strength. A man may carry vision in his heart, yet he often doubts whether it is enough or whether he has the endurance to see it through. The woman who believes in that vision becomes a source of energy he cannot manufacture on his own. Her support is not about blind agreement, but about standing beside him with faith, encouragement, and perspective. When she speaks life into his dreams, when she reminds him of his ability in moments of fatigue, she reinforces his sense of purpose and ties her presence to his forward momentum. To him, that bond feels sacred because it is not just about who he is today, but about who he is becoming tomorrow. Alignment and purpose does not mean sacrificing individuality. It means finding the overlap between two lives where her goals and his vision can coexist and complement one another. A woman who supports a man's vision while also pursuing her own creates a dynamic that is magnetic. He does not feel that he must choose between love and mission. He sees that love itself strengthens the mission. This balance allows the relationship to become a partnership where each person's progress inspires the other. For men, this is powerful because it affirms that their drive for meaning is not selfish, but can be part of a shared legacy. Without shared purpose, relationships often lose direction. Attraction may fade, routine may settle in, and conflicts may feel heavier when there is no bigger picture pulling both individuals forward. But when two people are bound by a shared sense of mission, even challenges become fuel. Struggles are reframed as part of the process rather than obstacles to love. Disagreements can be worked through because both understand that the ultimate goal is not to win against each other but to advance together. This is why many men are drawn to women who see beyond the surface, who understand that his ambitions are not just about success but about meaning. She becomes not only a lover but a partner in building something lasting. A man who feels supported in his purpose will love differently. He will invest more, commit deeper, and fight harder to preserve the bond. This is because he no longer sees the relationship as separate from his mission but as an integral part of it. The woman beside him becomes part of his why, the reason he wakes up with drive, the reason he endures difficulty, the reason he refuses to quit. To him, her presence is no longer just emotional or physical. It is spiritual, connected to the very essence of what makes his life meaningful. When a woman chooses to align with his purpose, she is not just supporting his path, but weaving her presence into his legacy. In doing so, she creates a bond that goes beyond romance and into partnership, beyond attraction and into devotion, beyond temporary passion and into enduring love. A shared purpose is not only what holds a man's attention, it is what secures his heart, because it transforms love into the foundation upon which both can build a life of meaning together. Admiration fuels his masculinity because it speaks to a deeper part of him than simple praise ever could. Praise often focuses on outcomes, on what has been accomplished, what is visible, or what can be measured. It celebrates the finished product, the external win, or the success everyone else can see. Admiration, however, lives in the unseen. It notices the effort before the result, the persistence behind the curtain, and the inner growth that others may overlook. For a man, admiration is not about inflating his ego, but about affirming his identity. It tells him that who he is becoming matters more than what he has already achieved. And when that recognition comes from the woman he loves, it carries more weight than the applause of 1,000 others. At the heart of every man is a longing to be recognized for the struggle, not just the success. Achievements can be fleeting, and while they bring pride, they are often external validations that fade quickly. What sustains him is knowing that someone sees the unseen labor, the late nights, the failures he overcame, the discipline he maintained when no one was watching. Admiration validates his journey, not just his destination. This is why a man falls more deeply for the one who notices his perseverance, his growth, his intentions, and his evolution, even when the world may not yet applaud. Admiration is powerful because it affirms his masculinity in its truest form. Masculinity is not defined only by physical strength or external dominance. It is defined by his character, his ability to rise after being knocked down, his willingness to provide, protect, and persist even when it is difficult. When a woman admires these qualities, she communicates to him that his efforts are seen and respected. That feeling ignites something in him. It motivates him to keep striving, to stand taller, and to give more of himself to the relationship. Unlike shallow flattery, admiration is depth, it is specific, it is authentic, and it penetrates straight to his core. There is also a difference between conditional and unconditional admiration. Conditional admiration celebrates him only when he wins or delivers something tangible. Unconditional admiration acknowledges who he is even when the outcome is not perfect. For example, recognizing his consistency in working toward a goal, even if he has not yet reached it, tells him that his worth is not tied solely to success. This kind of admiration reinforces his identity as a man who is valued for his effort, his vision, and his determination, not just his results. It allows him to exhale, knowing that he does not need to constantly perform in order to remain worthy in your eyes. A man who feels admired for his persistence and growth experiences a renewed sense of purpose. He begins to channel more energy into his goals, not just for himself, but because he wants to live up to the way you see him. Admiration fuels his courage. It reminds him that he is not alone in his pursuit, that someone believes in him enough to highlight what he may even overlook in himself. And often, it is in those moments when he doubts his own ability that your admiration becomes the spark that keeps him moving forward. This form of recognition also strengthens intimacy. When a woman admires a man, she connects not just with what he has done, but with who he is at his core. That kind of connection is rare because it does not reduce him to his paycheck, his appearance, or his accomplishments. It elevates him as a whole person. And once a man feels seen in that way, it becomes incredibly difficult for him to detach. Admiration ties his masculinity not to the shallow expectations of society, but to the deeper reality of being valued by the person who matters most to him. Admiration fuels his masculinity because it builds him from the inside out. It is not about feeding vanity, but about affirming strength, courage, resilience, and growth. It transforms his drive into devotion and his ambition into a shared journey. From knowing that you see beyond the surface, beyond the immediate, into the essence of who he is becoming, is what makes love not just feel good, but feel grounding, purposeful, and worth giving his entire heart to. Playfulness strengthens connection because it balances the weight of life with the lightness of joy. Relationships often get caught in the seriousness of responsibilities, plans, and conflicts, While depth is necessary, too much heaviness can drain the bond between two people. Men, like anyone else, need a space where they can feel free, unburdened, and alive in the presence of their partner. Playfulness brings that element into love. It turns moments into memories, transforming a relationship from something that feels like work into something that feels like freedom. For a man, laughter shared with the woman he loves is not just entertainment. It is emotional oxygen that keeps him connected to her in ways words cannot capture. Playfulness does not mean immaturity or the absence of responsibility. Instead, it means creating a dynamic where joy and lightness coexist with seriousness. Men are often expected to carry the weight of providing, protecting, and pushing forward in life. These roles can make them feel like they always have to be composed, strong, and in control. But when he is with someone who invites him to laugh, to let go, to be silly without fear of judgment, he experiences a kind of intimacy that cuts through the pressure. In that space, he is not performing or proving. He is simply enjoying. That joy becomes a bond because it reminds him that love is not just about effort, but also about ease. Laughter has the power to dissolve walls. Serious conversations can build understanding, but laughter builds closeness. When a couple shares private jokes, playful teasing, or spontaneous fun, they create a language only they understand. This sense of shared joy becomes a glue that binds them together, making their connection feel unique and irreplaceable. For a man, these moments are more than just light-hearted distractions. They are reminders that his relationship is a source of energy, not another responsibility that drains him. Playfulness signals that love is not a cage but a space where he can breathe and thrive. Men often fall in love with the way they feel when they are with someone, not just with what that person looks like or says. When he feels lighthearted, relaxed, and free around you, he begins to associate you with joy itself. Playfulness shifts the relationship from something predictable into something alive, keeping the spark fresh over time. Even after conflicts, laughter has the power to soften tension and bring perspective. It tells him that despite challenges, the bond is still rooted in joy. This is what makes relationships resilient. Because no matter how difficult life becomes, there is still room for laughter. Playfulness also reveals vulnerability in a way that strengthens trust. When a man allows himself to be goofy, silly, or childlike around you, he is letting go of the armor he shows the rest of the world. He is saying, without words, I feel safe enough with you to let you see the unpolished parts of me. That level of comfort deepens intimacy because it shows that the relationship is not just built on roles and expectations, but on genuine connection. When you join in, matching his energy and inviting laughter, you reinforce that love is a partnership not only in struggles, but also in fun. Joy, when shared consistently, turns into freedom. Love no longer feels like a duty he must fulfill, but like a gift he gets to experience. Playfulness makes the relationship a safe haven, where even in the midst of life's chaos, there is laughter to return to. For a man, that is priceless. It tells him that love does not have to be heavy to be real, that commitment does not have to mean losing joy, and that intimacy is not just built in serious talks, but also in playful moments of laughter, teasing, and shared fun. Playfulness becomes the rhythm that keeps love alive, fresh, and deeply fulfilling. Consistency builds deep trust because it removes uncertainty and replaces it with a steady foundation. For a man, love is not built on grand gestures alone, nor is it sustained by fleeting emotions. What makes him open his heart fully is knowing that what he sees, hears, and feels from his partner remains aligned over time. Reliability becomes the silent language of love, the proof that words are not empty and actions are not temporary. When he experiences consistency, he feels safe enough to let down his guard, because he no longer fears that affection will vanish, promises will be broken, or support will fluctuate depending on moods or circumstances. Trust is not created in a single moment, it is cultivated in repetition. Men may appreciate passion, admiration, and fun, but they cannot fully invest in love if they are unsure of stability. Each time words match actions, each time presence aligns with promises, each time effort remains steady, it reinforces a man's confidence that he is not walking on shifting ground. This steadiness allows him to bring more of himself into the relationship, to share his vulnerabilities, and to take emotional risks he might otherwise withhold. Without consistency, love feels uncertain. With it, love feels like home. Consistency does not mean perfection. It is not about never making mistakes or always being emotionally available. Instead, it is about showing up again and again in a way that proves dependability. Even when disagreements arise, consistency shows itself in the willingness to resolve rather than run, in the choice to stay engaged rather than withdraw. For a man, this kind of reliability is more powerful than constant reassurance because it is proven through behavior, not just words. Words may comfort in the moment, but patterns reveal truth. This alignment between words, actions, and energy tells him something crucial, that he can trust not only what you say but who you are. Men, like anyone, have experienced promises broken, love withdrawn, or loyalty questioned. These experiences often make them cautious with their hearts. But when he meets consistency, his defenses begin to lower. He starts to believe that love can last, that loyalty can be real, and that his vulnerability will not be punished. This shift creates an opening where intimacy can grow without fear. Consistency also builds respect. A man respects someone whose behavior reflects integrity. Someone whose energy is steady, not only when things are easy, but also when life becomes difficult. He notices when care is shown in small, repeated gestures rather than only in dramatic displays. Over time, these patterns matter more than any single act of romance. They tell him that he is not just loved in words, but valued in action. This is why men often say they fall deeper for women who make them feel secure. It is not about predictability in a dull sense, but about the assurance that love will not disappear when tested. Another dimension of consistency is emotional steadiness. Men thrive when they know the emotional tone of the relationship is not constantly shifting. Sudden swings, unpredictable reactions, or conditional affection create anxiety, making it harder for them to invest fully. But when emotional presence is stable, when care, kindness, and respect remain intact even during conflict, it reassures him that the relationship is built on something lasting. Emotional steadiness does not mean avoiding difficult conversations. It means approaching them without abandoning love in the process. When a man feels this kind of reliability, he is able to reciprocate with his full heart. He begins to plan a future more openly, share his inner world more freely, and lean into the bond more deeply. Consistency gives him the courage to stop holding back because he no longer fears sudden betrayal or abandonment. It transforms love from a temporary feeling into a lasting commitment. For him, this is the difference between affection he enjoys and a bond he trusts with his entire being. Ultimately, consistency builds deep trust because it proves that love is not a passing emotion but a stable force. It allows him to rest in the certainty that he is valued, respected, and safe to give his all. Over time, this steady alignment becomes the heartbeat of the relationship, the quiet yet powerful rhythm that assures him he can love without hesitation and trust without fear.